Well, Baldur's Gate number 3 just shocks the collective internet and has opened up the floodgates for a whole lot of questions. A lot of very uncomfortable questions. I remember when I shared this particular clip that went viral with the rest of the harem, and the responses that I got, well, I think you can understand them.
Great value for families.
How about no?
Go to hell! Okay.
Needless to say, this reveal of a potential romance that you can pursue in Baldur's Gate 3 blows the lid off of a very touchy subject that we've talked about here before on Camille's Harem in regards to D&D, and I think it deserves being revisited again and to remind ourselves of some good writing advice that we can learn from what you can do with the limitless potential of telling a good D&D story. So, hi there everyone, Lars back with another D&D discussion brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And yes, to everyone out there, this has always been an option within D&D. If you wanted to have your character stripped down and get together with a bear, that is absolutely something you could do at the table. Should you do it? That's another matter entirely. In a previous video that I did about romances within Dungeons & Dragons, I talked about how important it is to make sure that everyone at the table is comfortable with this particular route, because D&D is a shared storytelling experience. Everyone contributes to it. Now, in Baldur's Gate 3, because this is a game that you're playing by yourself, you are in complete control of everything that's going on, so you don't necessarily have to worry about anyone else's opinions at the table. You don't have to worry about the Dungeon Master. You don't have to worry about so-and-so over there, who has never dealt with anything as kinky and hanky-panky as this before. So, yes, you can be more free to have your bear fun in Baldur's Gate 3 than you would at a table, and that is how the creators of this game have decided to run with the romance options for their stories. And, well, okay, good on them, I guess, for getting creative and weird with some of this. But this is not something that I would necessarily encourage within most games unless, once again, you talk it over with the people that you're playing with. Romance is absolutely fine at the table, but you have to set some boundaries. First of all, you need to understand this, that unless people at the table are already a couple, dating, married, or otherwise, that you probably shouldn't be coming to play D&D to find the one that you want to get together with. That is how we get a lot of creepy stories there. You're coming to share a story with everyone else at the table. You're there to play together, to strengthen your friendship, to have a great time playing some amazing story together within the world that the Dungeon Master has created, and that you're then filling with your characters and your own choices. If you wish to pursue a romantic route within the story, talk with the Dungeon Master. Talk about saying, hey, look, this is what my character is like. This is where my character wants to go. These are potential romances that my character might want to try out in the future. If you're open to it within your story, I would like us to try it on out. And then the Dungeon Master, if they agree with it, should then tell the rest of the people at the table, hey, look, so we are thinking about allowing for some romance to play out here in the story. If you are not comfortable with it, personally, or with your character, please make sure that you already let me know ahead of time, so that way I can avoid certain situations. If everyone's against it, hey buddy, maybe we might need to rethink the romance route for your character, maybe save it for another campaign. Having that open conversation, that open dialogue and honesty between everyone really helps set the stage for a very healthy experience at the table, and just for a genuine good time with everyone. If romance is a make or break it deal for you, then you might need to reconsider why you're playing the game, because there's a whole lot more to the game and to any story than just romance, and that even goes for romance novels and the likes. If it's just about the steaminess, well, yes, that does sell, and yes, there is a market for that, but everyone knows that those books are usually garbage, and games that are like that are usually garbage as well. Now then, what about going and clapping some bear cheeks? Oh boy. Again, I myself personally would not play this at the table. Because I think this is absolutely ridiculous and way too over the top. But then again, that's up to you and everyone else there at the table to determine for yourselves. And if that's what you guys all want to go for, then by all means you can go ahead and do that. Again, the people who are overreacting to this clip right here, there is an entire market for that kind of stuff. As cringe as it might be to some of us, and maybe even especially to you, it does exist, and you are not going to win any battles or any wars by dying on this hill and saying, this is awful and it must be gotten rid of, let it burn in the deepest circles of hell. Which actually then you'd be getting it wrong because you freeze in the deepest circles of hell. But coming back onto it, if you want to clap bare cheeks, again, you gotta make sure that you're comfortable with everyone there at the table, that they're comfortable with it as well. And this is something that writers should take into consideration for writing out their own stories. It's your own story, you can write what you wish to write, but you honestly should ask yourself, do I need to add this in? In one of my more recent videos, I brought up a very sensitive scene from the ending of the first season of Heavenly Delusion, where one of the main characters is sexually assaulted. And it's a pretty intense scene, and it's something that encompasses 2 episodes. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of people had very, very strong opinions about what was going on, and that is honestly valid. I made the video to help explain why this scene was happening, why it's important to the story, and where we're going to go from here in the manga, because the manga is already well ahead of the anime, and what the anime should hopefully touch on in order to be respectful to this very critical, very horrifying scene. If you wish to put certain bits of romance into your story, you need to make sure that it fits, that you are treating it appropriately. Sure, you can write your characters however you want. If you want to write smut for smut's sake, well, that's up to you. But the thing is this, is that even though while there's an audience for that, it might not be the best thing for your story. It might not be the most respectful thing for your characters. It might not even resonate with the audience that you're writing it for. They might think it's way too gratuitous. They might think it's way too silly. They might think it's way too stupid. Or they might not think that it was built up well enough. If you wish to have some vampire thrall bard clap cheeks with a bear, then that's something that you're going to have to actually build up to. You're going to have to treat these characters in their own respectful way. You have to set it up properly, and you have to figure out what you're exactly going to do with that particular scene. Are you going to treat it respectfully? Are you going to be raunchy with it? Are you going to be silly with it? There's a lot of things to take into account when it comes to writing and exploring romance. It's not just the kissy and getting into bed and dancing the mattress mumbo. Anyone can write that, and usually then it's nothing really special, and it just comes off as silly and dumb. It's actually kind of funny because recently I was reading a book where most of the online reviews for it were criticizing the fact that there was just all of this casual sex thrown on into there, and that they felt that it did nothing whatsoever to build up the plot or the characters. They actually felt it was super degrading. Now, while there's some people out there who say, no, this actually fits, this is really good, the author and the editor certainly thought so, most of the audience that this book was written for did not agree. And that's something that you have to take into consideration. And I'll say this, from my own personal experience, while I have not played a romantic arc myself in D&D, I'm way more into just the adventuring, the silliness, and the fighting, though I have been interested in playing a character with their own romantic sub-arc. I have learned through writing my own stories that romance is something that you have to treat very, very carefully because of how everyone interacts with it. It is a very subjective experience and topic. Everyone's going to come from it from their own personal experiences and from their own personal tastes and opinions. So while you are definitely going to be writing your own story, it's always something to kind of bear in mind, because you don't want to lose your audience. If you're telling a great story and one romantic scene just breaks that suspension of disbelief for everyone or takes them out of the story, then that would be sad, because otherwise it's a great story and it just has one bad egg in there, and you don't want that one bad egg to foul up the rest of the recipe. And so when it comes to writing my own romances, like, this is something where I've given it a lot of thought. there are certain scenes where I'm like, yes, I am going to do this. And then when I shared it with my writing group, they're like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, no, I will make it work. And it's true. Hearing back good feedback from other people does help you to realize that sometimes the thing that you thought was really awesome and really good and would work out really well isn't actually going to work out. This is why it's also good, again, to share your ideas with the Dungeon Master and with the other people there at the table before you get into any sort of romantic situations with your characters. Because you want to make sure that what you have in mind is actually going to work and not be uber offensive or derail the plot or the gameplay in any kind of way. So romance actually takes a whole lot of work to make work. And sure, you know what? After having seen some of the beta testing for Baldur's Gate 3, I'm actually pretty confident that the creators knew how to make some satisfying romances within the game. It's just that this particular option is rather ridiculous. And it does make you wonder why exactly it was in there. So there's a whole lot more to this conversation to be had, but if you are a player or a writer and you're thinking about putting in a romantic sub-arc, you need to think about, what is this going to do for my character? What is this going to do for the plot? How are other people going to react to it? Am I dominating the story just to have this one particular moment? Because if so, then I'm derailing so many other great things that could be happening, that should be happening, just for this one moment. If that's the way that you're treating a romance, then it is all superficial, it's not rewarding, and it just turns people off to it. So that is my more middle-of-the-road approach to what was recently been revealed from Baldur's Gate 3. Yes, it's very easy to rage and to spit in anger at this sheer weirdness, but we have to acknowledge that D&D is a game of limitless possibilities, that writing your own story is exactly the same way, and that you shouldn't just simply jump to kink-shaming, even if you despise what you see. That's the wrong approach to dealing with the situation, because there's actually something very important I feel that we can learn by looking at this experience and saying, okay, this is what they did, this is how we can make it better for more people, and not necessarily to say, hey, everyone should be out there with a bear naked in the woods. Absolutely not. Instead, what can you do to make sure that the romances that you do put into your stories, that you put into your games, are acceptable to the people who are playing or reading, and that it is rewarding for everyone within that particular experience? So, those are my thoughts right there. Let me know what you thought about the Baldur's Gate reveal in the comments. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on that. In the meantime, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, and if you'd like to support us, please check out the books that we've published. Links for them are in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this crazy adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.